You said sorry before the sentence finished, before anyone reacted, before there was anything to apologize for, and some part of you registered it happening and could not stop it. Not sorry for something you did, sorry for the thing you were about to say, sorry for the space you were about to take up, sorry, preemptively, for existing in that moment. That is not politeness. That is your nervous system issuing a disclaimer on your behalf, before anyone asked for one. By the end of this, you will understand exactly what the apology is doing, where it came from, and why knowing that changes something. What this is not two things this isn't. It is not over-politeness. Overly polite people choose to soften their language. This is not a choice. It fires before the choice is available. And it is not the same as saying yes when you mean no. That is a reactive pattern. Someone asks, the alarm fires, the yes comes out. This is different. This is proactive. The apology arrives before anyone has made a demand, before the room has indicated any threat. Your nervous system apologizes in advance. The fawn response, when it is reactive, says, someone is asking something of me and saying no feels dangerous. Preemptive apologizing is the fawn response in its most anticipatory form. It says, I might be taking up space. I might be inconvenient. I will make myself smaller before anyone confirms that. The request never came. The threat never materialized. And the apology went out anyway. Psychologists studying anxious attachment and hypervigilance have found that some people develop what is called anticipatory shame, a state in which the nervous system preemptively generates a shame response in social situations before any negative feedback has arrived. The body has learned that shrinking first is faster than waiting to be told to shrink. The sorry that arrives before the sentence is not about what you said. It is about who you learned you needed permission to be. And here is where it gets specific. Because the apology did not just arrive automatically, it arrived early, faster than the situation required. And that timing tells you something about when it was first learned. Chapter 1. What the apology is doing. The preemptive apology is doing several things simultaneously. The first thing it is doing is reducing perceived threat. If you make yourself smaller before anyone notices you, if you acknowledge your own potential inconvenience before they have a chance to feel it, you reduce the likelihood of a negative response. The apology is a preemptive social risk management strategy. It says, I already know I might be too much. I have already taken care of it. The second thing it is doing is managing other people's emotional states. An apology disarms, even an unwarranted one. It signals non-threat, agreement, deference. It shifts the emotional temperature of a room before the room has had a chance to become threatening. For someone whose nervous system learned to monitor and manage emotional temperatures, this is an automatic tool. The third thing, and this one is the hardest to see, is confirming a belief. Every time the apology goes out, the nervous system receives a small piece of evidence. You needed the disclaimer. Your presence required justification. The preemptive sorry is not just a response to a belief about yourself. It is a maintenance mechanism for that belief. Each one makes the next one more likely. You are not apologizing because you did something wrong. You are apologizing to prevent the feeling that you might have. And the prevention has become more automatic than the feeling it is preventing. So when did the nervous system first learn that your presence needed a disclaimer? Because it was not always automatic. There was a room where this was first written. Chapter 2, the room where it started it, did not start with the meeting this morning. It started before you had any language for what you were doing, before you knew what an apology was supposed to be for. This pattern does not usually come from one event. It comes from a climate, a consistent message delivered without words that your presence required management, that who you were, as is, was slightly too much, slightly inconvenient, slightly requiring of justification, a parent whose mood was the room's weather. When they were fine, everything was fine. When they were not, the energy changed without explanation, and you learned to read the change before it arrived. You learned that if you could make yourself less, softer, quieter, more preemptively agreeable, you could sometimes prevent the weather from turning. The sorry was a weather management tool, a relationship, or a friendship, or a family dynamic where your needs were received as inconveniences. Not cruelly, just with a slight sigh, a slight shift, a barely perceptible sense that you were asking for more than your share. You learned to apologize for the asking before you asked, to pre-shrink the request so it landed smaller, a school, or a social group, or a home where being too much, too loud, too intense, too present, too certain of your own opinions had a cost. The apology became a way of arriving with your hands up, of saying, I am already aware that I might be a lot. I have already accounted for it. You do not need to tell me. The apology that arrives before the threat is always a memory of an older threat. Your nervous system learned the cost of existing without a disclaimer, and it decided that the disclaimer was cheaper. The sorry that leaves your mouth before the sentence is finished is not about now. It is about the room where now used to mean something different. And this is where Layla comes in. Chapter 3, Layla, I want to tell you about a woman named Layla. She is 29, precise, thoughtful, the kind of person whose emails are perfectly worded, who prepares before conversations, who almost never says anything she has not considered first. She also, in a meeting last Tuesday, apologized for asking a question that the meeting had been explicitly scheduled to answer. She heard it leave her mouth, sorry, this might be a stupid question, but... And then the question, which was not stupid, which was the exact right question, which led directly to the most useful 20 minutes of the meeting. Afterward, she replayed it, not the question, the apology. She had been doing it all week, in the coffee shop when she asked them to remake her order, on the phone with her mother when she said she could not make Sunday dinner, in a text to a friend when she said she was tired and needed to stay home. Sorry for existing in the way she existed. Sorry for needing things. Sorry for the space she took up, in advance, before anyone indicated the space was a problem. She asked herself that evening, when did this start? And the answer that came back was not a single memory. It was a texture, a climate, the low-grade sense, accumulated over years, that her as-is version was slightly too much, and that shrinking preemptively was more efficient than waiting for someone to ask. She was not apologizing for what she said. She was apologizing for the version of herself that was about to speak. She was sorry, in advance, for being Layla. Pause here, because if Layla's Tuesday felt familiar, the apology before the sentence finished, the sorry for existing in your own way, that is not a character flaw. That is a nervous system that learned, in a specific climate, that your presence was something that required pre-justification. It does not mean it was right. It means it was real. And real things, learned in real rooms, can be unlearned. Keep going. Chapter 4, What It Costs. The preemptive apology has a cost. Not to the people receiving it, they have adapted. Most of them do not notice anymore. The cost is internal. It is what the pattern does to the person issuing the disclaimer. It confirms the belief it is trying to manage. Every apology for a thing that did not require an apology is a small piece of evidence delivered to your own nervous system. You were right to apologize. Your presence was a risk. The disclaimer was necessary. The belief and the behavior reinforce each other in a loop that the apology itself keeps turning. When did you last say something without arriving apologetically? Without the sorry, the hedge, the this might be wrong but, the preemptive disclaimer? For some people, that moment is hard to locate. The shrinking has become so habitual that the unshrunken version feels unavailable. Not because you do not have opinions or needs or things worth saying, because the mechanism runs before they can arrive. There is a version of you that exists before the apology, before the disclaimer, before the self-reduction. The version that has the thought, forms the sentence, and then, in the fraction of a second before it leaves your mouth, adds the sorry as a kind of cover charge. As if your words need to buy their way into the room. That version is always there, and it is always paying a fee it does not owe. You do not apologize because you are wrong. You apologize because somewhere, a long time ago, being right was not enough. You had to be small enough too. So what changes? Not the sorry itself, that will still arrive. What changes is what you do in the moment between the apology forming and the apology leaving. Chapter 5, the window the apology forms automatically. That part does not stop immediately. What changes is the window. There is a fraction of a second between the nervous system generating the disclaimer and the disclaimer reaching your mouth, where something is still possible. The apology is there. The question is whether it goes. In that window, one question. Not, is this polite? Not, will they think less of me? Those questions lead directly back into the mechanism. Did I actually do something wrong here? Often the answer is no. And the question is enough. It creates a small gap between the nervous system's automated response and the action it wants to trigger. Not enough to stop the apology every time. Enough to notice it. Enough to, occasionally, let the sentence arrive without the disclaimer preceding it. Over time, each time the apology was ready and the question arrived and nothing catastrophic followed, each time you said the thing without pre-shrinking and the room did not react the way the nervous system predicted, the body adds a small piece of evidence to a record it has almost never had the chance to build. Evidence that the undisclaimed version of you is survivable, that the sentence can arrive without the cover charge, that the room, more often than not, does not require you to be smaller than you are. You do not have to stop apologizing today. You just have to notice, once, that the apology arrived before it was needed. That noticing is the window. The sorry that arrived before the sentence, it was not wrong. It was a solution. One your nervous system built in a specific climate, for a specific kind of risk, that made complete sense at the time. In a room where your presence needed justification, the disclaimer was efficient. It reduced the cost of existing before the cost arrived. And so the apology kept going out. In rooms that were different, with people who had not asked for it, for sentences that did not require it. Not because you were wrong, because the nervous system does not check the room before it runs the program. It just runs it. The apology arrived before the threat did. That is not politeness. That is a nervous system that learned your presence needed a disclaimer. It just has not learned yet that you have left the room where that was true. If this named something you have been carrying, leave one word in the comments. Just one. The room, the person, the sentence you apologized for before it arrived. You do not need to explain it. The people reading the comments will understand exactly what you mean. I will read every single one. And if this described someone in your life, someone whose sorries you have stopped noticing because there were so many of them, share it with them. Sometimes the right words arrive before the right conversation. Subscribe, not because this channel has answers, but because next time we go into something directly connected to this. Why you always feel guilty for wanting things just for yourself. Same nervous system, different expression. I will see you in the next one.